Alright, so this is a lesson on factoring out the greatest common factor. Alright, and in example 1, we're going to just look at finding the greatest common factor. So we want to find the greatest common factor of the terms 10x cubed plus 30x squared plus 50x. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is to list out the prime factors of each. So we have 10x cubed, and the prime factors of that would be 2 times 5 times x times x times x. 30x squared, prime factors would be 2 times 3 times 5 times x times x. And then 50x would be 2 times 5 times 5 times x. Okay, in order to figure out the greatest common factor, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the common factors for each. So they all have a 2 in common. They also all have a 5 in common. And they all have 1x in common. So we would say the greatest common factor is 2 times 5 times x, which is equal to 10x. Right, so the greatest common factor of 10x cubed plus 30x squared plus 50x would be 10x. Alright, in our next example, factoring out a monomial, what is the factored form of 9x to the 6th minus 12x to the 3rd plus 18x squared? First thing we have to do is figure out what is the greatest common factor. Right, so we need the GCF. In order to find the GCF, we're going to list out the prime factorization or the prime factors of each term. So this would be 3 times 3 times x times x times x 6 times 12x cubed be 2 times 2 times 3 times x times x times x. And 18x squared would be 2 times 3 times 3 times x times x. And so if we highlight the common factors, we've got a 3, a 3, and a 3. We've got an x, an x, an x. We've got another x, and another x. Alright, so the greatest common factor is going to be 3 times x, which would be 3x squared. Alright, so there's two ways we can think about this. If we're going to factor this out of 9x to the 6th minus 12x to the 3rd plus 18x squared, I'm going to clone this and put this over here. And I'm going to clone it again and put it underneath here. Alright, so if we're factoring out the GCF, I'm going to factor out 3x squared. So what I'm really going to do is I'm going to take and divide everything by 3x squared. Then when I divide, I'm going to bring this down. 3x squared. 3 goes into 9 3 times, and then x to the 6th over x squared give us x to the 4th. Minus, because we have a minus sign there, 12 divided by 3 would give us 4. X to the 3rd over x squared.
Point interruption.
Okay, so x cubed over x squared would give us x. And then plus 18 divided by 3 would give us 6. And then x squared over x squared would cancel out, and we're left with just 6. Okay, a second way of thinking about this, if we know we have a GCF of 3x squared, we go ahead and take the 3x squared out. what would you have to multiply 3 by to get 9? And that would be 3. If you already have 2 x's, how many more do you need to get to x to the 6th? You need 4. Okay? What do you have to multiply 3 by? Bring your minus down. What do you have to multiply 3 by to get 12? 4. X squared, we already have 2. We need to get to 3. We need another x. Okay? What do you have to multiply 3 by to get to 18? That would be 6. We already have 2 x's. We have 2 x's there, so we don't need any more. Okay? So 2 different ways of thinking about the same problem, and we end up with the same answer. Okay? And then how could you check your answer? We would check our answer by distributing. And when we distribute, we should end up back at the original problem. Alright, the last example. We've got an archer shooting at a target with circles marked inside of a square. What is the area of the unshaded region below? Alright, so what we need to figure out the unshaded region, we're going to do the area of the square minus the area of the circles. So to figure out the area of the square, if it's 4x there, it's 4x there. So we would have 4x times 4x minus, right? In order to figure out the area of the circle, pi r squared. So we do a radius. Well, the radius, the entire diameter is 4x. So in order to figure out the radius, we do 4x divided by 2, we get 2x. Okay? So this is going to be pi times 2x squared. So 4x times 4x would give us 16x squared minus 2x squared would give us 4x squared pi. Okay? But we can take it a step further by factoring it out. Alright, so what can we factor out of 16x squared and 4x squared? Well, we can factor out a 4x squared. So then we would have 4. Because 4 times 4 is what gives us 16. We've already got 2 x's. We don't need any more. And then minus, and 4x squared would go into 4x squared one time. And we just bring down the pi. So that would be the factored form of our answer. Okay, so that is the area of the unshaded region in factored form. All right. And for class on Monday, be ready to answer the question at the bottom. How would you find the area of the square if you were given the radius of the target? And that wraps up our lesson on factoring out the greatest common factor.